When you study the daily realities of World War II soldiers, you quickly realize that the battlefield wasn't shaped only by bullets, tactics and logistics. It was shaped just as much by what men could eat, how they prepared it, and how they stayed alive on days when a single spark could reveal their position to an enemy. That's exactly why today we're digging into 7 ingenious wartime cooking hacks soldiers use to prepare food without fire. These are small pieces of survival history most people never hear about, yet they're some of the cleverest adaptations the war produced. And before we get into the deep details, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep exploring these overlooked survival stories together. The more people who join us, the more of these forgotten skills we can bring back to life. The reason these fireless cooking methods matter is simple. Open flame meant death. Smoke gave away a position. Heat from a camp stove could be spotted with primitive infrared. Even the smell of heated rations could betray a hidden unit. Armies learned quickly that stealth was the best protection, and soldiers learned even faster that survival depended on transforming the most primitive ingredients into fuel for the body, without lighting a single match. What you're about to hear is exactly why many units stayed fed when everything else was stacked against them, and why these methods still have value for modern survivalists, researchers and field historians who want real, functional knowledge rather than romanticized myths. Soldiers learned to cook using the heat they carried on their own bodies, especially during long marches. One of the most surprising but well-documented hacks involved body heat. Soldiers wrapped tins of beans, oats, or canned meat inside their greatcoats or under their shirts, using the slow rise of temperature from their torso to warm food over several hours. It wasn't a pleasant method, but it made cold, congealed rations softer, more digestible, and, well, less demoralizing. Modern survivalists can replicate this when traveling long distances by letting sealed food warm inside a backpack pressed close to the body. The trick works best with high-fat foods or liquids that respond quickly to warmth, such as canned stews or energy-dense porridges. Troops used chemical heating reactions inside ration kits that required no flame whatsoever. Long before modern MRE heaters, World War II soldiers, especially engineers and specialized units, knew how to combine simple chemical packets or metallic components to generate heat. Some folks used water mixed with quicklime from repair kits, and, well, that produced enough warmth to heat a canteen cup of food. Others, they broke down obsolete flameless heater mixtures that were issued in small quantities. Even civilians during sieges learned to heat their food with calcium carbide or exothermic salts when, fuel ran out. This is actually a technique modern preppers can mimic safely, using civilian-grade flameless heaters or by packing a small amount of food-safe quicklime in a watertight container for emergency heating. Canned foods were often warmed using residual engine heat from vehicles, tanks, and even aircraft. Any crewman in the Second World War can tell you engines run hot for a long time after shutting down. Soldiers quickly learned that tucking a ration tin against an engine block or inside an exhaust shroud would warm it enough to eat. It wasn't really cooking. It was just making the food palatable, Tank crews especially mastered this, sliding cans into slots behind armour plates where heat radiated fiercely. Today, anyone travelling by vehicle in remote areas can use this same principle by placing sealed cans near safe engine surfaces during breaks. Just avoid areas with moving parts or flammables. It's one of the simplest ways to get a hot meal without using a stove. Grains and dried meals were cold-soaked to become fully edible without cooking. Soaking food was one of the oldest tricks in both the Allied and Axis playbooks. Soldiers soaked oats, cracked wheat, dried potatoes, biscuit crumbs, or even powdered soup mixes in cold water for hours. Well, the result wasn't exactly gourmet, but it did provide vital calories and, required no heat or fuel at all. Cold soaking, actually, still works today with instant rice, couscous, rolled oats, military ration powders or freeze-dried foods. If you're out doing field research or maybe on a long trek, you can just prepare a jar or canteen full of cold-soak ingredients in the morning and, well, you'll have a meal ready by the afternoon. Chocolate, fat, and ration bars were often softened using body warmth and ambient heat. During the Second World War, soldiers depended heavily on high-fat, high-sugar ration bars, many of which, honestly, were nearly impossible to bite into when they were cold. So soldiers would soften them by holding them under their armpit, in their pockets, or even inside their helmets, letting those small amounts of radiant heat make them, well, chewable. For modern application, this is, honestly, one of the easiest survival adjustments. Just keep dense energy bars, or maybe even emergency chocolate against your body for, say, 20 to 30 minutes in cold environments. The result is a much easier to digest meal that won't damage your teeth or waste precious energy. Tea, coffee and broth were made by steeping for long periods instead of boiling. Soldiers often went weeks without enough fuel to boil water. When that happened, they relied on long, cold steeping. Ground coffee, tea leaves, powdered broth, and herbal mixtures were placed in canteens or mess cups with cold or lukewarm water. After an hour or two, the liquid became strong enough to drink. It wasn't hot, but it provided caffeine, warmth of morale, and hydration. Anyone today can use this technique by carrying a metal bottle with a tight seal and allowing drinks to steep gradually as you travel. Captured packaging and improvised insulation allowed ration tins to slow cook with retained heat. Whenever soldiers could steal, salvage or scavenge insulation, wool, paper, leaves, straw, they wrapped it around sealed tins just after they had been exposed to mild heat from the sun or machinery. The insulation locked that heat in, letting the food warm further over the next hour. It was, a primitive thermos effect. In modern practice, you can wrap sealed food in clothing or insulating material after brief exposure to the sun or a warm surface. It won't cook the food, but it raises temperature enough to boost morale and digestion. These were the hacks that kept countless soldiers alive. Not dramatic, not glamorous, but effective, practical, and born from necessity. This is the kind of knowledge that deserves to be kept alive. especially for anyone who studies survival under real historical conditions, not fantasy scenarios. If you want more deep-dive historical survival content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share the video with fellow historians, and help keep these forgotten skills in circulation.